All right, now we're going to talk to my friend Laura Donovan, who I've worked with two different jobs over the years. She is an autistic mom raising autistic boys. She's also an avid reader and writer and a memoirist and essayist. Laura Donovan, great to see you.
Great to see you. Thank you.
Well, I wanted to talk with you, and I should have had you on sooner, but Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Secretary of HHS, recently was talking about autism, and he was saying these are people who will never pay taxes, never write a poem, never go on a date.
This is an individual tragedy as well. Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. These are children who should not be suffering like this. These are kids who, many of them were fully functional and regressed because of some environmental exposure into autism when they're 2 years old. And these are kids who will never pay taxes, they'll never hold a job, they'll never play baseball, they'll never write a poem, they'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. And we have to recognize we are doing this to our children.
And I know that upset a lot of people in the autism community. And I wanted to have you on to get your thoughts. What did you make of that comment?
I think at worst, it's extremely harmful and it's not true. And at best, it just makes me sad for him because I know so many amazing autistic individuals, my children included, who are just wonderful people. They're intelligent, they think differently, and they make the world better. And he's really missing out on that. It's not true. So I am autism level 1, which used to be called Asperger's syndrome. We do not use that anymore. So it's just levels 1, 2, and 3 by severity. And I have a son who's autism level 2. So he's slightly more on the spectrum than I am, as you might say. And I think that he's wrong. I think he needs to spend some time with people on all ends of the spectrum, and he'll see that he's so wrong and he's so hurtful.
Could you just briefly tell us what are some of the characteristics of autism? What is it for those of us who are novices?
Right. So in my case, I am level 1. So we don't really use the term high functioning, but that's what you would say. I don't have as high needs as, say, you think about Dustin Hoffman and Rain Man. So that might be a more extreme example, or somebody with more severe needs. And so in my case, my autism is characterized by obsessions. And you've seen this play out. We've been friends a long time. You've seen me obsess over the Barbie movie, Harry Styles, and books on social media. And so you might see little boys being obsessed with trains. In my case, it's books, it's movies, it's celebrities. So that's one area of it. Also having an incredible memory and repeating phrases or repeating quotes from movies. That's what my sons and I all do. And it drives my husband crazy because he's the only one in our house who is not autistic. So he's just like, okay, it was funny the first 50 times when you quoted Dennis the Menace, but it's not funny anymore.
Well, it's so weird that RFK would say this because, there are many people. Elon Musk, I think he has not been diagnosed with autism, but he claims that he is autistic, and perhaps he is. And indeed, he's somebody. Look, I've got a lot of problems with him, but he's been a high achiever, clearly.
Right.
And I think you could argue that perhaps maybe he would not have been as successful were it not for being at somewhere on the spectrum. To me, it was weird that RFK, and look, he could have qualified it. He could have said, in some instances, why do you think it is that he painted with such a broad brush?
Because he wanted to be hurtful. And I think that he doesn't understand. And again, like you mentioned, there's quite a few people who are probably on the spectrum who have changed the world. Elon Musk, There's debate that maybe Mark Zuckerberg is, or Bill Gates. Whether or not that's true, I don't think that you need to be somebody who changes the world to be an autistic person that is of value to society. I think about my best friend, Crystal. She has a younger brother who's autistic, and he's in his 30s like me. He still lives at home, but he's held a job for his whole adult life. He helps his parents. He goes on trips with his dad, who's now retired, and he takes the place of the mom who doesn't want to travel. And so I just don't understand why he would think that somebody like that doesn't deserve to exist in society.
So is part of this the sense that they want to eradicate autism, which is the sense that people who have autism shouldn't exist? Like, in fact, what bothered me is when he said they'll never pay taxes. Like, that really bothered me, because if he's like, they'll never go on a date, they'll never play baseball. Well, you and I know that's not true for many, probably for the majority of people who have autism. But even if it were true, the whole thing about they'll never pay taxes, like, to me, that is code for they will never be contributing members of society, as if giving the government my money is what makes me worthwhile or of value.
Right. And how many people outsource their taxes anyway? Like, okay, I will admit it. My husband handles our taxes in our house, but that's only because I'm very bad at math. That's not because I'm autistic. But even if he didn't, we would call an accountant. There are people who are not autistic that outsource it to someone who can. I think that is such a strange example of why you would be against someone with autism, that they're not paying taxes. Well, what about rumors about, has the president showed us his tax returns, stuff like that?
Indeed. So obviously, this is something that bothered you. Is this broadly, are you hearing from other friends who are also offended by this? Like, how pervasive was the outrage?
It was huge. I follow so many autism accounts on social media, a lot of moms who have autistic children, a lot of grown autistic women like me. Everybody was pretty upset because it's hurtful. It's his way of saying, like, we don't deserve to exist. And maybe he's trying to question why so many people seem to be being diagnosed with autism at this point. And it's not that he has to assume it's a toxin or some environmental issue. Research has evolved on autism. And so we're learning that there are tons of women like me who went through the 80s, 90s, early aughts, undiagnosed with autism,
Right.
because research was not as refined as it is now. That's why you're seeing so many books about women my age and older who are saying, hey, I didn't know I was ADHD in high school, or I didn't know I was autistic until now. And it's because research has evolved. So it's not that everybody's autistic now. It's just that we know more about it than we did in the past. And there is a genetic link. So I knew before my diagnosis that autism runs in my family. I have a nephew on the spectrum. I have a half sister who's ADHD, and she found out about her autism after I got my diagnosis. She went in. So there is a genetic link. And but I think he's trying to say something's in the environment, and he gets so hyperbolic when he talks about everything that's going wrong in the world. Like, you've heard it all. We've all heard RFK.
So is it your position that more people, there's not really an uptick in autism, it's just that we've gotten better at diagnosing it, and so that's what makes the perception that more people are being born with autism?
Yeah, exactly. We know more about it. And again, there were generations of women and girls like me who were missed for so long because it was considered a boy's disorder for the most part when I was growing up. And I really would have benefited from an IEP, an individualized education plan. That's what my son has in kindergarten. I would have benefited from an aid. I would have benefited from all the resources he's getting because he was diagnosed at age 3. So I'm thinking about all the women and girls who were missed for a really long time. And that's just one piece of it. We know about other elements of autism, ADHD. Some people say they're ADHD when they have both. So we're just learning more. And I know RFK has said this didn't exist when I was growing up, but that was a long time ago. We know more about autism now, just like we know more about cancer research now.
So if you were, I mean, it's sad that we have to inform elected officials, or in this case, appointed and confirmed officials, but people who are in very prominent positions. But if you could talk to RFK Jr., what would you say to him?
I would say you're missing out on some of the most purest souls that I have ever met that you could have the opportunity of meeting. So I think about my son, James. He's almost 7. And his PE teacher told me of the other day that he is the embodiment and the exemplification of love and acceptance. And he's just this wonderful kid. And I volunteer a lot at his school, and I see a lot of little boys fighting and punching each other and being mean. He's not one of those kids doing that. And again, that's something that a lot of people do and they grow out of it. But RFK is missing out on some of the most amazing people that he could ever meet by just assuming that he should write them off as being defective.
Well, let me say, anyone out there who's looking for a very good Instagram to follow, Laura, it's Laura Donovan Writes, because that's your
Correct.
handle. I love it. You are constantly reading and reviewing books, and this is a very positive, uplifting, aesthetically pleasing Instagram that I highly recommend. Laura, any final thoughts that you'd like to leave us with, or the audience, or anything you want to plug?
Yeah, as you know, I've been writing a memoir. I'm trying to shop it around right now about being a mom who discovered her autism at 35, thanks to her little boys. And it's very timely because, yes, we're all talking about autism, not just because of RFK, but because research on women and autism autism in general, we're learning a lot more about it. So I've been working on that, and I am going to continue posting book content, like you said, on my Instagram, as well as looking for a home for my book. Maybe I'll start a Substack. I've been told I should do that too.
You
So.
should. Yeah, I'll help you if you want to get into this space. I'll help you out. I'll give you the pointers I have, which I'm still learning about it. No, it's so funny being a parent. I remember when my one son was just starting school, he was having a problem reading. So we took him to this eye doctor, but Dr. Jacobs, he's passed away. It's really sad, man. I love this guy. But he was like a philosopher. He wasn't just an eye doctor, and he wasn't just a regular like optometrist. Like he was into like how the brain corresponds with the eyes. And he was telling me about my son's problems. And it wasn't vision specifically. It was the connection between his eyes and his brain. And, it wasn't exactly, what's it called, where people read backwards.
Dyslexia.
It wasn't that specifically. It was something like that. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, I think I might have had that same problem my son is having, but I just thought I was stupid or whatever. And it actually really made me kind of tear up in the moment. And it's like, wow, if I wasn't a parent, I would not have known that I actually had this problem. So it sounds like you went through a similar, but maybe much more extreme experience that I did.
Yeah, and it all started with my first son, because I remember it was COVID 2020. James, my older son, was a toddler, and we were watching a lot of movies because we couldn't go out. And we were quoting from Home Alone, Dennis the Menace, It Takes Two, Daddy Daycare, a lot of silly movies from the 90s and early aughts. And we were quoting these movies all the time. And I thought, okay, this is kind of funny, but he's not coming up with his own ideas. He's just quoting from the movie. It doesn't mean that he wants to be an actor. I think that it's beyond that. And so we learned that what he was doing is called scripting. And so he's memorizing movies, memorizing TV shows, and that way he uses it in the real world. But because he doesn't have his own ideas,
like a toolbox that you're.
Yeah. And like you're picking and choosing, what can I say? And when I was a kid, I totally did that. Like when people were mean to me at school, I would try to feed them a line that I had heard from a movie, and it never landed the same way. So it's kind of like saying, okay, well, this person said this and they got this reaction. Well, that happened for me. So that's called scripting. And then my other son, Johnny, he has autism as well. His presentation is slightly different. He's very obsessed with Legos. And so when I got him evaluated, I joked with the doctor, oh, autism runs in families. Should I go get evaluated too? Haha. And she says, yeah, absolutely. Based on some things that I've seen, then yeah. And again, she knew that women have historically gone undiagnosed. So that was her recommendation, and she got me the quick referral. But that's how it all happened.
Wow. Is it because people didn't care as much about women? Or is it just that, like, with a woman, you're like, oh, she's quirky. You know what I mean? She's cute. She's quirky. Why is it that with women, it went undiagnosed?
So it's a little bit of both. I mean, you could say, oh, she's just a weird, awkward girl. She's quirky, kind of like the manic pixie dream girl vibe. And girls present differently. History or research has shown that girls mask better, and masking means hiding. So an autistic girl might do a better job of not showing those symptoms in a certain environment. And so there were things that I did as a kid that were seen as strange to people. I didn't talk until I was 3.5, but they just thought, oh, she's shy. She's a little bit weird.
Love the weird people, though. They make the world go round. They keep it interesting. Oh, wow. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. Check out the Instagram, Laura Donovan Writes. Laura Donovan, I'm going to get you on Substack. And thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It's so good to see you again.